Hey everybody, what's good? I am your host, and my name is Professor Khalil Amani. Welcome back. Part 5, Sodom and Gomorrah. I invite you to go back to parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 so you're up to speed when you get to part 5. But, as I always say, if you're a Billy Badass with scripture and you think you know about Sodom and Gomorrah, jump on in here. Let me say off the rip, if you think that the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah had to do with their homosexuality, you need to go back to part 1. That's not the case. I'm sorry, not sorry. Did you know that scholars unilaterally and across the board, monolithically speaking, do you know that biblical scholars agree that the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was not homosexuality? Furthermore, did you know that the Bible encyclopedias say things like there's no mention of Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed because they were homosexuality. I guess it's time to give you a little reference. Let me give you a little reference. People are starting to ask me for references. You know I do that. Stop asking me for sources and references, because you know they's a coming. They's a coming. You spent your whole life in the Christian church and you never stopped the preacher in mid-sermon and said, "Bruh preacher, Reverend Chickenfoot, can you show the sources that you talking about? Can you show us some extra biblical sources?" You never stopped the preacher. You listen to the preacher without one peep. But some of you want me to show my sources, but you won't ask your preacher for sources. You won't ask bruh pastor for sources. You won't even ask your Israelite teacher for sources. But because I'm coming at a different angle, you want me to source up or shut the fuck up. Well, I'll rather source up. But let me give you a quick reference to knock it out the park, that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah has no references in the Old Testament. Put my glasses on. Let me give you something real quick. Real quick like. That's right. Real quick like. We're going to cite a really wonderful book known as the Erdman's Bible Dictionary. You want sources for what I'm saying? Here's a source for ya. Yeah. This ideal that the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah had to do with homosexuality, that notion, that ideal, is not found in the Old Testament. Did you hear what I say? The ideal, the notion, the thought that homosexuality was the great sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is not found in the Old Testament. What? All of your ignorant Christian lives, you have thought that the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah had to do with their sexual proclivities, their sexual activity, and that these cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were strictly homosexual cities. Well, that idea, that fundamental idea, is not found anywhere in the Old Testament. Let me give you a source. I said we're going to read real quickly from the Erdman's Bible Dictionary, compiled by over 300 scholars of religion and Bible. When we go to the entry on Sodom, it tells you very plainly right here. Sodom, often with Gomorrah, became proverbial for conspicuous sinfulness that is ripe for judgment, and gives you a lot of scriptures, and for thorough destruction sent by God as judgment. Got it? See, Sodom, along with Gomorrah, in history, it became proverbial. In other words, when you something being proverbial means when you hear the word Sodom and Gomorrah, you think homosexuality. When you hear the words Sodom and Gomorrah, you think homosexuality. That's what it means when it says something becomes proverbial. Okay? Proverbial. But look down here. The idea that the fundamental sin of Sodom was homosexual behavior is not present in the Old Testament and appears only in later documents of the New Testament. Let that marinate on your soul. I said the Erdman's Bible Dictionary says that the idea that the fundamental sin of Sodom was homosexual behavior is not present in the Old Testament and appears only in later documents of the New Testament. Jude 7 and 2 Peter 2, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's what we do over here. We tell you what the scholars really say about it. Not what Reverend Chickenfoot says. Not what Bruh Pastor say. So understand, if you have a proverbial look at Sodom and Gomorrah as being destroyed because of their homosexuality, you didn't find it in the Old Testament. Because that notion and that ideal is not found from Genesis to Malachi, the first 39 books called the Old Testament, that the Jews call the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. That ideal that Sodom's destruction had to do with homosexuality is never found in the Old Testament. Only in the later documents of the New Testament, Jude and 2 Peter, do they make it about sexual immorality. I just wanted to share that off the rip. I had a shout out to Dr. Bombay.
Let's talk about timeshare maintenance.
Oh, y'all just gonna be commercials today. Get out of here. Shout out to Dr. Bombay. But Dr. Bombay, he commented on one of my videos asking if the grievous sin, how did he say that? Isn't the grievous sin homosexuality? Something to that effect. It's not. God in Genesis 18 never spells out what the grievous sin of Sodom was. It's up for conjecture. It's up for debate and contemplation. But scholars as in a Bible encyclopedia with over 300 PhDs that agree on the sources, they say this notion and this ideal that the fundamental sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was homosexuality, they say it's not even found in the Old Testament, in the first 39 books of the Hebrew Bible. You have got to go way over to the New Testament in the later documents of Jude 7 and 2 Peter 2 to get that ideal. And so when you were a Christian in the church, this is where your preacher got his ideals that homosexuality was the root cause of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. They got it from the later documents of the New Testament. All right. Let's get back on track. Thus far, I have proven that Lot was wicked. That Lot, when confronted with adversity, when confronted with people disrespecting his property, knocking on his door, banging on his door, surrounding his house, demanding that Lot send out the two men or angels so that they could be raped by the crowd of men, women, and children, that Lot didn't stand up and defend those gentlemen. He went outside and he called the men and women, he called the men of Sodom his brethren. And in part 4, we looked up the word brethren and realized that it's a community, a society of like-minded individuals, like-minded men. Don't let that fact escape you, that Lot calls these evil motherfuckers in Sodom his brothers or brethren. That's a term of endearment. And Lot's solution to the problem at hand was to turn over his two young virginal daughters for the sexual mob outside to rape and molest and violate in ungodly ways. That was Lot's suggestion, and that was his remedy. And I say, what kind of man and what kind of father is this? And if you think it's just Khalil Amani who's taken Lot to task over giving his virgin daughters to a crowd of men, women, and children to sexually violate, you'd be wrong. I'm not the first to question the doings and the actions of Lot. Lot was a wicked motherfucker. Going back to even asking the question, why would Lot settle and reside and live in the city of Sodom? For Sodom was well known to be filled with nastiness and sin and profligacy and wastefulness and stinginess. Sodom was the chief city of the 5 cities that was the most inhospitable. I want to read a little bit from another book, another source. People are starting to want me to source up. I want to read from a book called The Bible as It Was by James L. Kugel. James L. Kugel. It's called The Bible as It Was. And this book will take Lot to task as I am. What kind of man, what kind of husband, and what kind of father would suggest that his 2 young virgin daughters get the fuck out the house, go outside, and let men, women, and other children rape his daughters? What kind of man is this?
Davion, your clothes aren't going to be ready.
What kind of man is this?
T-shirts.
What kind of man is this? A man that would allow his daughters to become the sexual property of a whole city. And you niggas think this nigga is righteous? Well, this book I have has something to say about that. You want a little bit of references and sources? Let's go over here for a moment. I say we're going to read from the Bible as it was by James L. Kugel. They have some commentary on the subject. Facts upon facts. See, they even have a thing called a subject, Lot the Wicked. What? Lot the Wicked. See? A great many other interpreters nonetheless found Lot to be a less than positive figure. You don't hear these Christians and these Israelites take Lot to task for his wickedness. But in this book, it's titled Lot the Wicked. And they start out by saying a great many other interpreters, like Khalil Amani, nonetheless found Lot to be a less than positive figure. That's right. As a matter of fact, they write things like, this is from the book of Jubilees 16:6-8. They write, and he, Lot, and his daughters committed sin upon the earth, such as had not been on the earth since the days of Adam till his time. For the man lay with his daughters. We haven't got to that yet, but yes. Yes.
I washed the one you gave him. I'm just going to let him wear this one. Is that okay?
How about I get another one? I don't want to take that one because that might not come back. That's a special one to me.
He's spending the night here.
Okay.
Here.
All right, then he can. That's fine. Okay. I just don't want him to.
Don't lose this one. Okay, and because I got all his clothes in the washing machine.
Okay. So what are you doing with this shirt?
He's gonna wear it, or so I can get another one.
Yeah, don't give him that one. Yeah. Any other shirt? You pulling out the ones that I know is special, and I'll never find that shirt again if he loses it. He didn't bring no clothes with him.
Well, the clothes he has
He's washing
was
them.
dirty. They were washing them.
Okay.
I'll just give him this. And
yeah, there you go. There you go.
Cause Nicole's wash and dryer wasn't working.
All right.
Or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, but he's just gonna wear this one.
All right.
Oops. About to turn the light out.
I know. All right. One of my older grandsons is here, so she's getting some clothes to wear. But she got the wrong. She's getting some stuff out that's novelty stuff. No, don't let him wear that. That's novelty shit. Anyway, we haven't got to that yet. But let me show you something here. Oh, my wife came in and threw me off, so let me go back and make my point. The point I'm trying to make before I was interrupted, I won't say rudely interrupted, but before I was interrupted, is that what kind of man and father and husband throws his daughters to the wolves? What kind of man and husband and father suggests giving up virgin daughters to a horny mob outside that's looking for some sexual licentiousness? What kind of man does that? But as we just read, some commentators, a great many other interpreters nonetheless found Lot to be a less than positive figure. His actions were not positive or exemplary. I mean, what kind of man and what kind of father in crisis decides that the remedy is to just get rid of his virgin daughters. Just throw them outside and say, y'all just do what the hell y'all want to do. The fuck is going on in Lot's life? And so this same book has something to say about Lot throwing his daughters to the sexual wolves. It writes in this same book, I said in this same book, it writes, normally a man will sacrifice himself for his daughters or his wife. Either he kills or is killed on their behalf. But Lot was ready to turn over his daughters to them for iniquity. Good Lord. Said God to him, well then, you can keep them for yourself, and eventually little school children will laugh about you when they read, and Lot's 2 daughters became pregnant from their father. We haven't got there yet, but that's from the Midrash Tanhuma. But the question and the statement is true. Normally, a real man, a real husband, and a real father will sacrifice himself for his daughters or his wife. Either he kills or is killed on their behalf. But Lot was ready to turn over his daughters to them for iniquity, for sin. See, just in case you thought that Khalil was out here alone shitting on this motherfucker named Lot, the scholars also see the same problematic father and dad and Abba and husband and man that I see. Lot's whole life is problematic. It's problematic. Don't tell me there's anything righteous about what Lot did in telling the sexual horny mob outside, you can have my 2 virgin daughters. Do what the hell you want. No. Normally, a man will sacrifice himself for his daughters or his wife. Either he kills or is killed on their behalf. But Lot was ready to turn over his daughters to them for iniquity. Facts upon facts. How can we ever look at Lot as a righteous man when he did the very opposite of what any real man and real husband and real parent and real father would have done in the same situation? That's a situation where a man has to fight unto the death to protect his house, his wife, and his children. You got to die or you got to kill. But you don't lay down and say, just take my daughters. Can you just imagine what Lot's daughters thought if they heard through the walls, through the window, Lot making a deal with those devils outside to give up his daughters? Can you just imagine how they felt about their father if they could hear what was going on outside? The deal that that Lot was trying to make with these devils. Hey, I got 2 guests inside, 2 men, leave them alone. But I tell you what, I give you my daughters. The goddamn men of Sodom didn't even ask for his daughters. It would have been different if the men of Sodom said, well, if we can't fuck those 2 men, we gonna fuck your virgin daughters. And then maybe he said in a moment of weakness and spinelessness, okay, you can have my daughters. But no. This bitch nigga Lot He offers them up. The goddamn sodomites weren't even thinking about his virgin daughters. He offers them up. And as I said in part 4, the very fact that Lot would think that these men would take the 2 virgins in place of the men, it shows you that these men were at the very least bisexual. You wouldn't invite a vegan or a vegetarian over to your house and serve them steak.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it because you would respect the fact that they do not eat meat. So why would you offer vagina to homosexual men? You wouldn't do it because you know that homosexual men have an aversion, a detestation, a dislike for vagina. It makes sense. But now let's move on, y'all. Let's get to this. Let's get to the second thing. We're gonna double back and deal with Lot's unrighteousness. But I want to move on in the story and show you another time where Lot fell short of perfection. He fell short of his duties as a father. He fell short as a son of God. And we're going to be reading from Genesis 19. We're going to read on. We've already read in previous episodes, the 2 angels come. Here we'll start about verse 4. But before Lot and his family and those 2 men, so-called angels, before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young. See, there were some men and there were some boys also. But going beyond old men and young men, i.e. teenage boys, going beyond that, it says something else. All the people from every quarter. So now when the Bible says all the people, you can now include women and girls as well. Because people are men, women, and children. You can add children into the fray. You can add women into the fray. You can add boys into the fray. And you can add girls into the fray. And the men of the city of Sodom, they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them. Now, if you didn't know what it means when it says we may know them, that is euphemistic language that means so that we may have sex with them, so that we may fuck them, so that we may have sexual intercourse with them. That's what it means when it says that we may know them. I said it's called a euphemistic language here. Whenever you read that someone knows you, it's not hi, my name is Khalil, and shake hands. When it says someone got to know somebody, it means they had sex with them. Do you need a reference? Of course you do. Let's stop there and let's go to the scholars and let's prove that to know in the Bible, means to have sex with. So let's go to, I think we can go back to Erdman's. Let's go to Sodom. No, I think we can go. Okay. We can go to the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, volumes R through Z. I have all 5 volumes. This is the last volume. There's 4 main volumes, and then there's a 5th one called a supplementary volume. But when we go through the Erdman's Bible Dictionary, volumes R through Z, we're going to find out what does it mean when someone says to know somebody in the Bible. So we go over to, I say we in the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, and we go over to the Sodom. We go to the Sodom entry. It says sodomites. A native of the city of Sodom, later the term for a male person who engages in sexual relations with another male. The men of Sodom demanded that Lot surrender his two male guest angels to them for sexual purposes. See? And then they tell you what it means. Bring them out to us that we may know them. Genesis 19:5, for the meaning of know, see sex. See? I said the meaning of to know, the meaning of know, the meaning of know, it says see sex. And it says that the men said, bring the angels out, bring the two male guests, the angels to them for sexual purposes. And the reference is, bring them out to us that we may know them. You got it? Got it. Okay. You should know this, but there's always somebody go, well, it doesn't say they had sex. It says the angels wanted to know them. Well, is it evil? Is it evil to just get to know somebody? No. If it was talking about getting to know these angels, hi, my name is John. Oh, you are an angel from heaven? It's nice to know you. It's nice to meet you. If it was talking about that kind of know, why would the following scriptures, why would Lot go on to say, don't do this evil? How is knowing somebody, hi, how is that evil? But when you read on, you realize it must be something really bad. So after the men say, bring them out unto us that we may know them, have sex with them, fuck them up the ass, sexual intercourse, and Lot went out unto the door, and Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him. And look what Lot says. And Lot said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. What do you mean, wickedly? If to know them simply meant getting to know their names and where they come from, how is that a wicked thing? But if to know them means to take them angels and rape the dog shit out of them, to fuck them up their ass and run dick all up them, now that would be something that you might say, do not so wickedly. You see the context? The context when Lot says, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly, it further allows you to know that when they say that we may know them, that they're talking about raping, sexualizing two males, men, angels. You got it? The context tells you down there. Because, as I said, how is it wicked? How is it wicked to simply get to know somebody? You got to understand that the phrase that we may know them is a euphemism. A euphemism means nice and pleasant language. That's all it means. So when a preacher's in church and there's, minors and children around and he's trying to teach the Sodom and Gomorrah story, he's not going to say in front of children, bring them angels out so we can butt fuck them. Bring them angels out so we can fuck the dog shit out of them. Bring those angels out so we can stick penis in their booty. He's not going to say that in church in front of children. So they use words called euphemisms. It's pleasant and nice language to say something that's vile and nasty and creepy and disgusting. It's a nice way. The Bible uses bring them out so that we may know them as pleasant and euphemistic language to say so that we may fuck them. You get it? It's a pleasant way of describing a terrible, terrible act. The act of raping men. Now let's move on. As we said in part 4, we see that Lot respects these guys. Lot respects the men of the city. So much so that he uses the term of endearment, brethren. We even looked up brethren. Go back to part 4. All that information is there. He calls these rapists his brethren. We're going to come back to all of this stuff. It's just so much. Okay. And of course, after Lot says, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. See, there it is again. To know somebody means to have sex with them. There it is again. Lot says he has 2 daughters which have not known man. That's the euphemistic, the nice language for saying, I have 2 daughters who have never had a dick in their pussy. That's what that means. I have 2 daughters that are still virgins. I have 2 daughters who have never had sexual intercourse. I have 2 daughters who've never been on their back fucking. That's what that means. Lot goes on to say, I pray you. Bring them out. Bring my 2 daughters out unto you, and do ye to them as good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing. Therefore came under the roof, under the shadow of my roof. So here is when this guy, this so-called father, this protector, this husband, this man, this is when Lot folds and caves in and suggests, hey, take my daughters and fuck them to bejesus. Okay? And they said, now the angels get involved. Excuse me. The men of Sodom. The men of Sodom, they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. See, they were about to jump on Lot. And the men of Sodom, they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. See, now they said, get your bitch ass out of the way. They started they pushed him out the way, pushed him down on the ground, and they started kicking the door. They trying to get in. But the men put forth their hand. The men, meaning the 2 angels, they put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut the door. Now the angels get involved. And they, the 2 angels, the 2 men, they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men, the angels, said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. See, I told you earlier on that Lot had married daughters, not just the 2 that were virgins. For Lot to have a son-in-law means he has a daughter that's not a virgin. He has a daughter that's married. We get caught up with the 2 virgins, but understand Lot had more children than the 2 daughters. And the men said, hast thou here any besides a son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his son-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his son-in-law. You see, Lot had a son-in-law that married a couple of his daughters. Daughters means more than one. Daughters means two or more. So this one man, this one son-in-law, he may have married 8 or 9 of Lot's daughters, because we don't know how many other daughters Lot had. We know he had the 2 young ones that were virgins, but then he had other daughters that were married to a single son-in-law. Not son-in-laws, son-in-law. They call that polygamy. So here is Lot having a son-in-law who married several of his daughters. 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, or 10 of his daughters. Not the 2 that were virgins. They were still under the care and so-called protection of Lot. Okay. And the story goes on, and when the morning rose, then the angel hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife, and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. See, going back, it appears, because the book says, but he seemed as one that mocked unto his son-in-law. It appears that the son-in-law did not believe the report that the city was about to be destroyed. So he takes his 2 virgin daughters and he takes his wife. See? And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand. The 2 angels laid hold onto Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters. And the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. They got him up out of there. And the story goes on. And the story goes on. And the story goes on. And so God goes on to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And they went to a city called Zoar, which is one of those 5 cities of the Confederation, known in the Bible as the cities of the plain. They stayed there. And the cities of the plain, see, it's right there. The cities of the plain destroyed. The cities of the plain were Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. Now, Zoar was one of the cities of the plain, but because that's where Lot and his wife, that's where Lot and his 2 daughters escaped to, that city was spared because Lot was there hiding. But Zoar is one of the cities of the plain itself. But it was spared. But the other 4 cities of the plain were destroyed. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. See? And God overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. Okay, go on. And see here. And his, Lot's wife, looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So Lot's wife did not make it. She died. She turned into a straight up statue. All right. And then the story goes on. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain. Again, the cities of the plain were Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. Those 4 cities, sparing the 5th city of the plain, known as Zoar, a.k.a. Bela. All right. Cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. Okay. Now, let's go look at Lot, his second piece of fuckery. It starts right here. It's called Birth of Moab and Ben Ami. And Lot went up out of Zoar, that's the fifth city of the plain that was spared, and dwelled in the mountain, and his two daughters with him. For he feared to dwell in Zoar, because it was part of the 5 cities of the plain that were wicked and nasty. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. You could use this come right here. You could change that to cum. You know, when a man nuts in a woman, when a man has an orgasm in a woman, they call it coming. You could change that out if you wanted to be nasty. There is not a man in the earth to come, to nut, to orgasm, to drop his seed, to blow our backs out. There is not a man in all the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. And so the firstborn daughter, she says to the younger daughter, she says this, Hey sister, hey baby sister, come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie, we will fuck, we will have sex with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. See, seed is cum, seed is nut, seed is sperm. Seed is those babies you put up in a woman's vagina. And so the oldest daughter, the firstborn, suggests, let's fuck our daddy. Because they think there's no, they up in the mountain, and they think there's no man that will ever marry their asses. So they say, well, let's just fuck our daddy. Come and let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. They wanted their father Lot to drink wine to get him so drunk, so inebriated, so fucked up, so much in a drunken stupor, that he wouldn't know that his own daughters had mounted his cock and was riding his dick like they were the Lone Ranger riding Silver the horse. That's being drunk for your ass. And they, the two daughters of Lot, they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn, the oldest girl, went in, and she lay, she fucked, she had sex with her father. And he, Lot, perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Goddamn, that nigga was drunk. And it came to pass on the morrow, meaning the next day, that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight, I fucked daddy last night. I lay yesternight with our father. Let us make him drink wine this night also. And go thou in, little sister, and lay and fuck and screw and have sex with him, our father, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, got him toe up, got him inebriated, got him shit-faced drunk. And the younger sister arose and lay with him, Lot, as well. And he, Lot, perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of the Ammonite of Ammon until this day. Goddamn. And you niggas want a whole lot up as something special. Let me take a drink. They call this incest. Now the daughters would reason and rationalize that the reason that they fucked their father was not for sexual pleasure. No. These young girls that were almost raped by the men of the city of Sodom, these same two young girls, after being saved from Sodom and Gomorrah, went up into a high mountain, and in their ignorance, in their teeny weeny world view, they thought they were special. They thought when they looked back and saw the billow of flames, when they saw the fire and brimstone emanating from Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, those four cities, when these daughters could look down and see the flames billowing up into the sky for hundreds of miles, in their ignorance, they thought that those four cities, those were all the people left in the world. That's how small and puny and tiny and teeny and minute their little fragile brains were. They had no concept of a greater world. They had no concept of a Sumer, of a Babylon, of an Assyria, of a Kemet or Egypt. They had no concept of a large body of water called the Atlantic Ocean, and on the other side, the Americas. They had no concept of anything south or north of the Tigris-Euphrates River. They had no concept of a continent called Africa today. In their worldview, these two little girls thought that those four cities that were burning, that was the world at large. Those four cities, all of the men who could potentially and possibly become their husbands and possibly become the fathers of their children, those two girls thought that they were burned up. Talk about some ignorant motherfuckers. Ignorant meaning without the knowledge of. And so, because specifically the older sister, this was the older sister's scheme. The Bible puts it on the older sister. She's the one with the harebrained scheme. She's the one who concocted. She's the one that looked down in the mountain and said, "God damn, the whole world is burning up. Ain't no dicks, ain't no cocks, ain't no penises that could ever go up in us and get us pregnant. What we gonna do? What we gonna do? Ah, baby sister, I tell you what we gonna do. We gonna go down there and get some grapes and make some wine. Let that shit get fermented good. You know, some circa circa 1700 BCE, MD 2020. Some Mad Dog 2020. We gonna concoct a portion of 1600 BCE Night Train. Some real nigger liquor. Oh, we gonna concoct it. And when we concoct this 1600 BCE Night Train, this 1600 BCE MD 2020 wine, we gonna give it to Daddy. We gonna give it to our Father, and we gonna make Daddy drink until that motherfucker is passed out. We gonna make Daddy drink until he is fully inebriated. We gonna make Daddy drink until he's drunk as fuck. We are going to make Daddy drink until he's knocked out on his ass and don't know if it's day or night. We're gonna make Daddy drunker than he's ever been, baby sister. And when we make Daddy drunk, we're gonna go in and we're gonna have sex with Daddy, and we're gonna make Daddy come in our pussies and get us pregnant. Now, sister, baby sister, Daddy is gonna be so drunk that all his body parts are gonna be just jello. His penis is gonna be soft, flaccid. You're gonna have to go in there and you're gonna have to arouse Daddy's loins. You're gonna have to do what they call, give him some sloppy toppy, some head, some brain, some dome, some oral copulation. You're gonna have to give him a blowjob. And the little girl, the little sister is like, what the hell is a blowjob? A blowjob is when you take your mouth and your lips and you're going to put it on Daddy's penis. And Daddy's penis will become engorged with blood, and it will grow and it will stand up and it will become stiff. And although Daddy will be drunk and sleep and knocked out, his penis will become ichthyphallic. Ichthyphallic means erect. And when you see Daddy's penis become ichthyphallic, engorged with blood, and standing up like a strong, sturdy oak, you got to get on it, daughter. We're going to get on it. You're going to ride. You're going to get on top. You're going to straddle, and you're going to put Daddy's penis in your side, in your hole. And you're going to go up and down. You're going to go up and down until you feel Daddy have what they call an orgasm. You will know it. He may not wake up, but he will start grunting. He might even grab you by the hips and thrust upwards. Don't worry, Daddy's going to be so shit-faced drunk that he ain't going to know what we doing to him. And if by chance Daddy does wake up, if he does wake up in the middle of the sex, oh well, we have to explain to Daddy we are trying to promulgate, we are trying to keep the human species alive because it's just the three of us. Everything else, all other humans are dead. That's what we say because we're watching those 4 cities burn to the ground. I'm giving you the real ism. And so they make the wine, they get a lot drunk, so drunk, pissy drunk, shit-faced drunk, splattered, plastered, inebriated. And once they realize that their father has passed out from drunkenness, they go in. The older firstborn goes in first. Maybe the younger sister is watching. Let me show you how to do it. Maybe. Maybe she's peeping in the tent. Oh, big sister's over there giving him a hand job, giving him a blow job, making his members stand up. Remember, Lot is drunk. When you're drunk and passed out, you don't have an erection. When a man is drunk and passed out on a bed, he's not stiff, he's not hard. Something has to happen to make his Johnson, his cock, his penis become erect. That, of course, the Bible doesn't go into detail, only means that that older sister had to perform hand job, oral sex. What's the word? Cunnilingus is for a man eating pussy. I keep forgetting that word. Let's get the technical word. It's on the tip of my tongue. Technical word for blowjob. The hell? Oral sex. Oral sex. I hate it when I have a word in my head I can't think of. I know that a man licking, a woman's vagina is called cunnilingus, but I got my. Come on, give me the word. There's cunnilingus, got that one. Woman performing oral sex on a man is called fellatio. I know that. What's wrong? Maybe I'm getting old. The technical term for what those daughters were going to do to their father is called fellatio. I know that word. I don't know why it wouldn't click up here. They call that a brain fart. Trust me, I know fellatio. And so the oldest daughter would go in there and she would perform fellatio. I'm pretty sure that the younger daughter, being naive and stupid, probably was at the door of the tent, probably had her head in there, probably was right there watching, so she would know what to do. And so the older daughter, the firstborn, she goes in and she has to figure out how to make her father's penis stand erect, of course, because he's shit-faced drunk. He's inebriated. So she got to do something. So she's going to use her hands and her mouth, and she's going to perform fellatio, dick sucking. And once she gets her father's penis to stand erect, she jumps on top. I mean, you gotta believe that the only sex position that could have gone down was the daughter on top. He's drunk. He can't be on his stomach, because if he was on his stomach, there would be no access to his penis. So she had to have him on his back, which means she had to ride him. And she rode him. And sure enough, even though Brother Lot didn't open his eyes, even though he was drunk and inebriated and in a drunken stupor, even though he was unconscious, when the point of orgasm came, she knew it. The daughter knew it because Lot started pushing upwards. He started grunting and groaning. And at the moment of climax, at the moment of orgasm, she knew it because Lot let out a grunt. He let out a grunt. Ugh! She felt him thrust upwards. And after that, she felt his wet, gooey juices slide down her thighs, and she tried to scoop it back in because she knew that was the seed of life. She got up real quick. And of course, she watched her father clean them up, got the scent of sex off of her father's penis so that he would not know what had happened. And Lot woke up the next day like nothing had happened. Lot woke up like everything was everything. And the big sister says to the little sister, you saw what I did to Abba, to Daddy, to our father last night? It's your turn. I have my seed. I am going to be pregnant. It's your turn. I need you to do exactly what you saw me doing. And the younger sister goes, okay, I'll try. We're going to get Daddy drunk a second night. And she does. And she goes in, the baby sister, the younger sister. She goes in and she starts playing with her father's penis because it's soft and flaccid and limp. Daddy is knocked out a second time, 2 nights in a row. And she begins to do what she saw her sister do, play with his penis. And then after that, she decided to put it in his mouth, in her mouth. And she performed fellatio. She gave her father a blowjob, and she was able to make her father's penis stand erect. And once it was erect, she looked over at her sister, and her sister went, that was the sign and the cue that now it's time to extract seed from their father. And the younger daughter would jump on and she would ride her father. Even though she was a virgin, when she jumped on, her father's penis broke her hymen. I meant to say that with the other sister. Both of them were virgins. When the older sister jumped on her father's penis, her hymen was broken, was ruptured. When the younger daughter jumped on her father's penis, remember they were both virgins. They call it popping the cherry. And when the younger daughter jumped on her daddy's penis, popped her cherry, broke the hymen. Blood was everywhere as it should be. Blood was all on her pubic hair. Blood was all on Lot's pubic region. Blood was running down Lot's balls. Because Lot had de-virginized. He had deflowered. The word is defloweration. Defloweration. Lot had unknowingly and unwittingly, Lot had deflowered. Lot had performed the act of defloweration on his 2 daughters. And that younger daughter got on that cock and she rode it and rode it and rode it. And she realized something was happening with her father because her father started making those same grunting noises even though his eyes were closed and he never gained consciousness. And at one point, old Lot began to grunt, and old Lot grabbed the hips of his daughter unknowingly and thrust upwards and let out the greatest grunt. And it was at that moment that the younger daughter knew that she had achieved the goal of extracting the seed of her father. I'm a storyteller. I'm a real griot. I'm a real raconteur. A raconteur is a storyteller. Imagine if the Bible gave it to you like this. Imagine if the Bible went into very vivid conversation about the sexual acts, as I do. I do that for a reason. I want you to become aware. I want to make these stories real to you. I want to put them in context. I'm not in front of a church audience. I'm not in front of a bunch of children. I can be what they call vulgar. But I'm not being vulgar, and neither am I being sexually gratuitous. I'm just being a raconteur. I'm being a storyteller. I'm being a griot after the African tradition. I'm going into in subtly great details to bring these stories alive and give them color and flavor and make you really see the moment. And of course, after the sex act, there was blood everywhere because the hymen was busted. He popped a cherry. And they cleaned up Lot. They cleaned up Lot. And they were pregnant. They became pregnant as we read. And from the daughters of Lot, 2 nations were born. 2 nations, Moab and Ammon. When you read about those 2 nations in the Bible, Moab and Ammon, you're reading about 2 nations that were conceived in incest. Now, some people, Hebrew Israelites and others, some people would like to think that the Moabites and the Ammonites are related to the Asian races today. I'm not saying that. I said some people teach that the nations that derived from the incestuous acts of Lot's daughter, they became the Asian races today, the Moabites and the Ammonites. Why do they say that? They say that because medically and genetically speaking, when incest occurs between parents and children, usually the result of a baby between a parent and a child is a retarded child. What they used to call a mongoloid child. Some today we call it autistic. Autistic, that's one word. But in the old medical verbiage, when incest occurred between parents and children and babies came forth from that union, those babies tend to be what they call retarded, another archaic word. Those babies tend to come out looking with kind of an Asian look, eyes kind of slanted, big tongues, round faces, kind of how you see Asians. What we used to call Asians Orientals. We don't use that word either anymore. You buy an Oriental rug, but you don't call people from Japan and China, you don't call them Orientals anymore than you call black people coloreds or Negroes. We black and we African American. They are Asians that used to be called Orientals. It's insulting to call an Asian person an Oriental. I said you buy an Oriental rug. But incest, babies from incest, usually turn out to be what they call mongoloid. And if you know anything about the different races of people on Earth, thanks to a white man named Blumenthal labeled the Asian races, which they used to call the Oriental races, he named them the mongoloid races. It all ties back. You can read about that, I think, from Babylon to Timbuktu. I don't know. Maybe I can pull it up real quick. Maybe. It's not a great book to source. From Babylon to Timbuktu, it's not a great book to source, but there's a guy named Blumenthal, Blooming something. He's the one that, gave the races. Let me see if I can just find that little reference. We like to source here. We like to source. He's the one that set up the whole race game that's in this book here. Let me see. Stuff like this I don't be thinking about until I'm talking. Let me see. Rudolph Windsor. It's not the best book, but it does talk about that guy. Let me see, is it in the reference here in the back? Let me just go through real quick. We're talking about the Asian races. Oh, there it goes right there. Bloomingbeck. Not Blumenthal, Bloomingbeck. Let me just show you this reference here. You see, that's why we read. Because when you read, you get a better understanding of shit. So in the book called From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph Windsor, he writes this on page 21. He writes this: dividing the world along a color line was an ideal that originated with the white supremacists in Europe after the Renaissance. The Europeans did not have any great civilization immediately after the fall of Greece or Rome. And it goes on. Europe began to emerge out of the slough of ignorance, and certain Germans and others conceived of themselves as belonging to a superior race. Johann F. Blumenbach, Johann F. Blumenbach, a German, 1752 to 1840, was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Up to this time, no such attempts had been made. His classification set up a color line to the detriment of later generations. Mr. Blumenbach, they misspelled it. They spelled it with a K there and a C there. I thought it was Blumenbach. That's why I said Bach in the first place. But they misspelled it there. They got back. But Bach is also Bach in German. But they spelled it two different ways. But anyway, I just noticed that. But Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind. The Caucasian, the Mongolian or the Mongoloid. See, there it goes. The Mongolian are the Chinese and Japanese and Asians, so-called Orientals. The Ethiopian and the American Indians and Malayan. Moreover, he considered the Caucasian to be the original race. Okay, so that's the guy. His name was Blumenbach. Johann F. Blumenbach, a German. He's the one that put up the 5 classifications, 5 chief races. White people, Caucasians, Mongoloids or Asians, Ethiopians or Africans, the American Indian, and Malayan. Okay, just want to show you that. Just show you that. But the phrase, but the Mongolian races, what are the Mongolian races? What are the Mongoloid races? Mongoloid is an obsolete racial grouping of various peoples indigenous to large parts of Asia. That would be China and some regions of Europe. See? Mongoloid is an obsolete racial grouping of various peoples indigenous, did I say indigenous? I'm reading it backwards. Indigenous Mongoloid are an obsolete racial grouping of various peoples indigenous to large parts of Asia. Got it? Got it. And so, it's time to go. Some Christians, some Hebrew Israelites would teach that Lot inseminating and impregnating his daughters unbeknownst to him brought about the Asian races who were called Mongoloids, and Johann Blumenbach would make 5 classifications of races, and he would label Asians, Chinese, and Japanese, and those folks. He would label them as the Mongoloid races based on the sometimes fact that when a parent and a child have sex and they have a baby, that the deoxyribonucleic acid, that the DNA gets all scribble-scrabbled, and the product is a child that comes out retarded with slanted eyes and round faces and thick lips that result and resemble what we call Asians, what they used to call Orientals, the Japanese and the Chinese and the Koreans and so forth and so on. I don't believe that crap, but this is what some of the religious folks teach. The origins and the foundations of the Asian races. They come through Lot's 2 daughters who had sex with their father and got pregnant. We're gonna end on this one. We're gonna come back and we're gonna go back and talk about Lot. We're going to come back and talk about Lot and his 2 daughters having sex. We're gonna postulate that maybe Lot knew that his daughters were riding his cock. Maybe they knew. It's hard to believe that someone could get so drunk that their daughters can have sex with them 2 nights in a row and they not know. And what was Lot doing so bad that he was not aware of how much alcohol he was consuming? We are going to deal with Lot. We're not going to get off of it. We'll be back for part 6. I'll see you soon. Peace.